What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the debut album by rock band Pierce the Veil. Basically, this project is called A Flair for the Dramatic, and it came out in the summer of 2007. So the thing about this particular project is it's kind of a finicky type project here. It is a pretty excellent type one, but I would also say it's kind of a finicky type one just because the production arrangements and instrumentation of the band is pretty sporadic and just overall not necessarily messy, but just kind of manic and in a lot of ways just kind of very schizo-like. This is within the concept of it. I do like the concept of it just because it really has some pretty the riffage and the shreddage on this particular project is pretty insane. I'd have to say definitely like the screamo type mentality works pretty damn well. I'd have to say, especially for 2007, there weren't a ton of folks like this back around this particular time. Maybe a few folks like Attack Attack and Under Oath and some of those type folks. But in terms of like the screamo kind of hardcore metalcore type sound, I'd have to say that this is kind of in a relatively original type format, but this the concept of it is their formats to how they set up their verses and bridges and hooks and stuff, and the instrumentation throughout those particular pitches. As far as that kind of goes, it's a little bit different, but I still do appreciate this record quite a bit. There was some good promotion on here. This is pretty excellent type one. It's definitely pretty solitary one. I feel like this is kind of like a banner project for hardcore sound as far as that pitch goes. I don't know a ton. Wikipedia says that this product is post-hardcore, but I don't know a ton of hardcore highlights as far as that particular kind of goes. I mean, apart from Under Oath, Attack Attack, some of those type folks, I don't know full-blown as much in like the hardcore territory, but I do like punk music, do like emo, do like screamo type sounds. I would have to say I'm gonna have to get into some more of these, but I did review Pierce the Veil's Collide with the Sky. I did review Pierce the Veil's Collide with the Sky from 2012 back in early 2023. I have to say I kind of got the tip off from Cyan as far as that particular pitch kind of went. So I think he's at least somewhat familiar with Pierce the Veil, I'd have to say. So I'm going to try another record by them and see what's up with it. But basically, I do enjoy this project quite a bit. So yeah, there were two music videos for this particular project. They weren't as full-blown confirmed as singles just because Wikipedia does not really as full-blown kind of designate like them being singles, and even on their discography it doesn't really list it. It says that their singles started with their second album from 2010, but I do think that there were at least two music videos released from this project, one of which was Yeah Boy and Dollface. The other one that came out later was Chemical Kids and Mechanical Bride. So I'm just going to talk about those two as far as that pitch goes, and we'll get to the rest of the album. So basically, Yeah Boy and Dollface is like a glazed kind of evening commerce in like an emo sense, I'd have to say in particular. It's a pretty good work after hours dredge of a song, but it's pretty lively, I'd have to say about it. So it's a pretty nice one to kind of get here. Basically, the format of a lot of these songs in this particular project is a lot of these are just like some good emo and punk type sound for just got done with work, or just the car traverse for either getting done with work or getting ready to step out of bed and have some of those type fares as far as that particular kind of goes. A lot of these are just really glazed and just have that evening type fare, just a lot of good shreddage. Like you'll get like some acoustic riffs, or maybe not acoustic, you'll get like some, well, relatively acoustic, just kind of light guitar licks in some of these type songs, and then they traverse into like a more kind of engaging kind of sound. Like a lot these some of these songs kind of happen like that, like Chemical Kids, Mechanical Brides kind of does it. Yeah Boy and Dollface kind of does it, and I'd say there's like another one possibly like Currents Convulsive kind of does it. Some of those type ones, there's maybe at least one other one like Cheap Bouquet is another one that kind of does that, but there's just some ones that kind of have like the initial kind of format of just some of that evening dredge, and then it'll shift into like some car traverse and just like a little bit more pep and just the excitement of getting ready to step out, or some pitches like that. For the most part, it's a pretty lively album, I'd say. Definitely like the concept of some of these, just is the way the pitch of these kind of particularly kind of happen, just because I like the engagement. The screamo factor is really good, and the emo sense of it's pretty high. Just to feel within that relative pitch really have some good stuff. I do feel like the sing-songiness kind of works on here, kind of combines like the sound of like, I mean, it's not. I want to use like Corey Taylor's kind of sing-songy sound of "Wait and Bleed" from Slipknot. I'd have to say it's a pretty good concept to kind of get that, despite the fact that most of this is screamo type stuff. Corey Taylor on the Slipknot song "Wait and Bleed" kind of had like a sing-songy hook, even though most of Slipknot sound was kind of more shreddage and just overall gnarled kind of head pounding, kind of head banging type stuff. That's kind of the concept of what Pierce the Veil kind of does too. It's a lot. They have a lot of good emo type hooks and punk type hooks that remind you of like that should remind you of like Blink 182 and like Good Charlotte and some of those type folks, and Attack and Breathe Carolina, some of those type folks. But then the riffage and just the overall shred is just like a combination of soft and hardcore as far as that particular kind of goes, as far as that aspect kind of happens. But Yeah Boy and Dollface is a pretty nice one for that sort of pitch. The second single, Chemical Kids and Mechanical Brides, is another nice one. It's like a good evening wake up and social prep of a song, I'd have to say, in particular. Pretty nice one for that. It's like some glazed commerce in the second verse, I would definitely have to say. So this is one, if you're waking up at 7:30 p.m., 8:30 p.m., some pitches like that as far as that particularly kind of goes. Maybe you're going to work or just enjoying like car travels at night, just going to get some snacks, going to get like some KFC, something like that. Just a good kind of pitch to kind of get here. It's within the commerce of it. But it is, like I was saying, this is definitely like a social prep type song, definitely for something engaging as to what's getting ready to happen after you get to more like the point of interest of some of these. I mean, this is a pretty car centric project, which I do like, just because a lot of this is just a lot of this is just the enjoyment of getting to like the venue or the point of interest where you're going to be, but also the engagement, just enjoying yourself on the way there as far as those particular pitches kind of happen. So it's just the concept. Some of this has the excitement of actually being there. I want to say that there's at least a couple songs, maybe like. I want to say possibly like Currents Convulsive, and then there's like another one that like I'd rather die than be famous that do kind of have some of that particular type bop as far as like just being at the house party or something like that. Just some good night venue type ones to kind of have for some shreddage, I'd have to say. But a lot of these are just the point of getting there and just that sort of pitch. But it is good. I like the vibes that they pull off because you do need some interesting type stuff to listen to as you go between point A and point B as far as that particular kind of goes. So these are just a lot of good ones. Should keep you excited pretty easily, I'd have to say. Just really engaging, has some good melodies on a lot of these. That's the concept. But to basically talk about the songs I recommend on here, so out of 11 songs on here, there's really only 3 songs I didn't recommend, and those would just be basically Falling Asleep on a Stranger, The Balcony Scene, and Wonderlist. And to talk about those real quick, basically falling asleep on a stranger in the balcony scene are just kind of more down tempo type ones that just didn't pull off the vibe that well, I'd have to say. The concept of it is I do feel like screamo bands kind of somewhat in certain cases kind of have like haphazardness and kind of snags with trying to do like the more softer type songs and more makeshift, just kind of in like a calmer type format. I mean, it just these songs would come off as more melodic, but when the riffage is just not as interesting, or it's just and the riffage is not as interesting or as sporadic as it is, it kind of makes it a more difficult type concept to really work with. This kind of concept, trying to get some of these type ones that just have a little bit more of like a calmer factor, just for like, I mean, I appreciate the kind of makeshift type, just more over steadfast type format of it, but it just didn't pull out the vibe compared to some of these more thrilling type ones. I definitely think like one of Pierce the Veil's strengths is just the engagement of getting you excited and just kind of stepping out and just the after work just dredge and just got done with work and just the relief of that as far as that particular kind of goes. That's kind of concept. But the same thing with Wonderlist. That was just kind of another one that was just kind of a messier type. Wonderlist was just another kind of messier type one that just didn't work the format as far as that particular kind of went. It was just kind of one was trying to be a little bit more steadfast and just a calmer type one, but just didn't pull out the vibes as well as it needed to. Then there was actually a 12th song that's an iTunes exclusive. I didn't decide to listen to that on YouTube, but there is a Beat It Michael Jackson cover, which I assume would be pretty good. So I'd have to say if it did wind up being like 9 out of 12, or if it did wind up being 9 out of 12, I would definitely have to say that that's pretty awesome to kind of get within that relative pitch. I would have to say, but I would probably recommend that just because usually Beat It Michael Jackson covers like Blood on the Dance Floor did a pretty excellent cover song of Beat It by Michael Jackson. So I'd have to assume that this one would probably be pretty good also. So I would definitely recommend to probably check that out. I'm not going to up the score in terms of like the concept of it just because I didn't listen to it, but I would assume that's a pretty nice one, I suppose. So it's a good enough concept. But basically, yeah, 8 out of 11 on here. So talk about some of these other songs I recommend. Basically, one of which is Currents Convulsive. This is a real nice one. This is like a glaring kind of night venue noise with a song. I'd have to say this feels like some indie house rock bop. This feels like an indie house rock bop of a song. I'd have to say in the second verse is definitely like a backyard type hit. So this is definitely one. This feels like some good night venue type fun on here. Just in particular, the shreddage is pretty good just as far as that particular kind of goes. Instrumentation's real excellent. The band work works pretty damn well. It's a real excitable type one. This is not one for like traverse and things like that. Just getting to the point. This is where you're actually there and just enjoying yourself a bit, having some beers and pitches like that, some smoke as far as that particular kind of goes. Some good snackage, burgers, whatever happens to happen, whether it's an outdoor festivity, backyard fun, just hanging out residentially, or just, more at a night venue, something like that. But it's a pretty good one to kind of get that. I'd rather die than be famous is another nice one as well. It's like an outdoor kind of glazed summer evening fun of a song, I'd have to say. I really appreciate this one. It's like a lively bounce and solid turn up gem, I'd have to say. So it's a pretty solitary one, I'd have to suppose. It's real nice. Really like the riffage on this particular one. This has a good kind of alternative metal type feel about this one. About this one in particular, I'd have to say it's probably need another song like this, I'd have to suppose. But I do appreciate the variety on this particular album as far as that kind of goes. This is another one that's not as much Travers, but just kind of in the midst of just, it reminds me more of like an outdoor sesh, just some smokish type fun as far as that particular kind of goes. I mean, the craziness factor on a lot of these is pretty high. It's just the energy of this particular album is just really ritzy. So the social score is probably going to get pretty close to a 10, I'd have to say, but this is still some really pounding stuff, I'd have to say, on a lot of these. Some of these songs are kind of tougher to remember, like the full blown format of a lot of these, but I would have to say the Diamonds and Why Men Buy Them is a real nice one. It's like a hazy kind of evening work shift of a song. I'd have to say this is like a car traverse type tune, I would definitely feel like. Diamonds and Why Men Buy Them is definitely like a hazy kind of evening work shift car traverse of a song, I'd have to say in particular. It's like some vanilla punk makeshift of a song, I'd have to say in particular. And this song really exhilarates, I'd have to say. So it's just the concept of another steadfast type one. This works pretty well with like some of the singles as far as that pitch kind of goes. Just some good evening prep as far as that particular kind of goes. Just kind of one that just kind of has that feel of just, class or work just got done, just the exhilaration of hopping in your car and just being in a real excitable type mood. Some pitches like that as far as that kind of goes. It's the excitement of getting ready to turn up. Like I said, it's a recurring theme on this particular project, but it's not a recurring theme in terms that it gets tiresome. It's just the concept of a lot of this is just the exhilaration of just like a lot of this music is just great for between like 4:30 p.m. to about 8:30 p.m. minus a couple of these party type tunes on here like Curran's Convulsive and I'd Rather Die Than Be Famous. But a lot of this just kind of has like the evening prep of just the transaction, just getting to some of these points and just enjoying the ride on the way there. Definitely kind of concept about Diamonds and Why Men Buy Them. Drell is another one that's like that. It's like a manic kind of post-work shift excitement. It's like a manic kind of post-work shift excitement of a song. I'd have to say it's like a cruise out and kind of superb turn-up energy that this song particularly kind of has. This is just a screamo hit, and this song has some good rippage on there. So I definitely appreciate some songs like this. These are just some ones just great for the Traverse type fare and just the overall commute and things like that, just in an evening sense. I mean, some of these could almost be work shift. I feel like this is a little bit extreme for like the work shift actually, if you're being at work, just even like the last couple hours of finishing up some of those type pitches. But I do feel like they don't really have like a full blown kind of makeshift type song, but definitely the commerce of being in a relative makeshift cycle does not completely, it's not in the it's not in the aspect of actually being at work. But once you're done, even if it's like 5 or 10 minutes after you just got done, it's just some good concepts to listen to. A lot of these, I'd have to suppose, it's a good concept. Just your loud pack for stepping into demon time and pitches like that, as it were to kind of go, I'd have to say. Another highlight like that is the Cheap Bouquet, I'd have to say, or the Cheap Bouquet. The Cheap Bouquet is another nice one. It's like a drudgy, just got task done relief of a song, I'd have to say in particular. This turns into like an airy car traverse type song in the second verse. And this is just some good makeshift. So it's a good concept. Kind of get a lot of these. It's really like the breeziness. I feel like a Cheap Bouquet. I feel like the Cheap Bouquet is pretty similar to like Chemical Kids and Mechanical Brides. I'd say it's a pretty nice concept. This probably could have been a single. I would have said it would have been a pretty dope concept to have gotten that one in particular. This works pretty damn well as far as that pitch kind of goes along with that. It's a real nice one for that relative pitch. And then another party type song that works pretty damn well in this particular project, definitely house party and night venue type prep as far as that particularly kind of goes, is She Sings in the Morning. I'd have to say it's another high fashion type one for that. It's like a snarling kind of late day pep of a song, I'd have to say. The shreddage is pretty raw in this particular song. This is just a hype song to get crunk to, and that this is a hype song to get crunk to, I would definitely have to say, and this is just some nightlife fun. And this is just some nightlife fun. So it's definitely a pretty good concept. Definitely appreciate a lot of these on here. It's just good to get. Definitely appreciate a lot of these on here. It's just a good concept to get some of these just within the aspect of enjoying some of the thrills of it. I'm glad that they had some turn up type songs just to prove that they can do that as well. So they definitely have like the Traverse type songs, the pitches like that, the evening prep, and just the overall commute of like going towards nightlife pretty good, but then they also are pretty crazed party. They're also pretty crazed night venue and party animals as far as that pitch kind of particularly happens with it. So it's just a good term. I mean, it makes sense just because how crazy they are and like their screamo vocals and pitches like that, I'd have to say. So it's just a pretty good concept to get them to have them off the chain and pitches like that as far as that kind of goes. Definitely a good pitch. So that's the basic concept of this particular project. I would have to probably recommend getting this on iTunes just to get the beat it cover because I would basically have to suppose that that's probably another highlight I'd say. But basically 8 out of 11 on this particular album. I'm going to go ahead and give this album like an 8.75 out of 10. Pretty good pitch for that. The social score is going to get like a 9.5 out of 10. The reason why the social score is not going to get a 10 out of 10 is just because the singles are a little bit low key and just within that fashion. I don't know if they were released to radio and pitches like that. They at least had some music videos, but it's this kind of concept. This was their debut album and pitches like that. So before that, they were more just on MySpace and pitches like that. They had different names like Pierce the Poison, something like that. I don't really full blown remember, but it's just kind of concept. They had a different name as far as that particular kind of went with with it. But yeah, they were kind of in the come up in like the mid 2000s. This was their debut project, and they were still kind of somewhat indie and pitches like that, more MySpace bound as far as that particular kind of went with it. But I look after the concept. This is a pretty excellent debut type here. It's definitely has some. This project definitely has some great evening life and pitches like that. Some evening prep for stepping out. Just got done with work. The loud pack to having some of that relief and just getting ready to step out and get to some time as far as that pitch gun goes. They definitely have some crazy night venue and good house party type tunes to really have that shrieco and screamo type pitch as far as having some real shreddage type energy, just some head pounding type music to really get you cranked in pitches like that. I'd say so. It's an excellent concept. It's 9.5. In terms of future, like Pierce the Veil dropped an album in 2023. They kind of took some years off after 2016. They kind of had like some squabbles or pitches like that, just some issues in like real life pitches as far as that particular kind of went. So it's just some off the camera. It's just some kind of off camera type problems that kind of happen amongst the band. But I still would say there's some excellent type stuff here to kind of get just amongst like that cancel culture type stuff. There's still some off the camera type stuff was just on some cancel culture type stuff. But there's definitely some excellent stuff to get here. I am going to review their other two albums from before 2023, and then I'll get to their 2023 album as far as that pitch kind of goes. But this definitely a high grade project here. It has some great quality about it. Just an excellent type stuff. Just some good evening loud pack and pitches like that. And I do have to recommend it quite a bit, I'd say. So I would go fuck with it, and especially get the one that has like the Beat It Michael Jackson cover on there.